What is up, guys? Today we will be looking over one of the most underrated Sonic stories, the bad guys. In the aftermath of the metal virus, we find the recently betrayed Dr. Starline attempting to infiltrate one of Eggman's many abandoned bases from the fallout of the Eggman Empire. It's apparent that Starline has lost his step a bit as he underestimates Eggman's security and forgets that he no longer has his most valuable tool, the Warp Topaz. Back in issue 25 of the regular run of Sonic during the height of the metal virus, Eggman realizes that the Warp Topaz could be used by Sonic to help cure the world of the metal virus. Starline, on the other hand, wished to wait a while longer on Angel Island as he thought there would surely be enough time to devise an alternate plan. This is when Metal Sonic steps in, snatching the Warp Topaz out of Starline's hand and teleports him while Eggman lets him know he is fired. Now that we're all caught up, we see that although Starline is caught a bit off guard, he has devised Electro Spurs, which make quick work of the Motobugs. But as reinforcements arrive, Starline is forced to make a hasty retreat. Back at his base, Starline records a journal where he admits that his long-term goals are currently unachievable, as he doesn't have the resources to complete them, and in the background we can see two green chambers with something or someone inside. Wanting to pursue Eggman's ambitions and achieve them without the constant hang-up of Sonic, Starline deduces that badniks are too limited in helping him. We're then brought to the secure facility of Everhold Prison, where Starline has broken in using his hypnotic gloves. He convinces the warden to escort him to the maximum security wing, where he looks for potential candidates for his schemes. The first of which is Mimic, an assassin who has worked for Eggman and has framed Sonic in the past. He has the unique ability to take the form of other people. Next, we're introduced to Rough and Tumble. These two are mostly notorious for their brawn and not their brain. And having just recently been imprisoned, Starline comes face to face with Zavik once more. When the warden realizes that these two know each other, Starline promptly puts him to sleep. Now, back in issue 21, Starline had used the Warp Topaz to travel to the Lost Hex in order to meet and recruit the Deadly Six. Starline had hoped that together all of them could stop Sonic for good, but in short, let's just say things didn't go as well as the Doctor intended. Starline, having been burnt by Eggman, hopes that the other imprisoned villains feel the same way, so that he can use them to further his means. However, Mimic quickly shoots down the invitation, followed by Rough and Tumble. Playing towards their desires, Starline is able to make a case for them to join him. He heads over to Zavik and attempts to do the same and play to Zavik's ego. This is a full display of Starline's flaw, as he always assumes he's the smartest in the room, thinking that Zavik is nothing more but a brute that he can manipulate. Zavik, as we see, realizes immediately that this is nothing more than Starline trying to pull a fast one. He goes along with Starline's plan for now, but plans to dispose of him after finding and striking down Eggman first. Caught up in thought and conversation, the two of them don't notice the warden as he hits a button, putting the prison on high alert. Starline reacts fast by taking the warden out. He grabs the keys and unlocks Zavik, who proceeds to free Mimic. Taking the form of the warden, Mimic is able to trick the security forces into an ambush where our band of villains turns out to be too much of a match for them. Room by room, they begin to overtake the prison before finally reaching the control room. Zavik commands Starline to release the cells and scramble communications, which sends the prison into a riot. Amidst the other chaos, the newly assembled band of villains escapes, ready to cause some real damage. Time goes by, and we catch up later with Starline as he assesses his new allies in his head, all while being so eager to rejoin Eggman's empire once again after proving himself. A flashback shows us that Starline's new plan is to target power cores from the Eggman empire, which will enhance speed, strength, and the ability to fly. Zavik and Mimic both question the Doctor about these cores, as they don't have much reason to trust him currently. Starline tries to reassure his new teammates by telling him that phase 2 of his plan is hacking into the Eggnet, which would grant Mimic the ability to be lifted off the database, as well as give Zavik an army. This appears to appease Mimic, but Zavik still has his doubts about Starline. As Zavik prepares to lead everyone into battle, we see Starline have a brief moment of self-reflection as he realizes that his egotism might be getting the better of him. Catching back up to the present, the assault on the egg base is well underway. We're given an inner monologue where Starline decides that after getting the power cores, all his new comrades need to be disposed of, as they are too much of a liability to keep around for when he begins his master project. While Starline sits back, Rough and Tumble launch Mimic through the air over the wall, where Mimic begins to take out egg pawns one by one. Zavik then heads for the main gate and breaches it easily for the rest of the squad to enter. Starline and Zavik have a very interesting conversation while entering the base, where Zavik sows seeds of doubt into Starline by telling him he should strive to surpass Eggman instead of getting back into good faith with him. The next phase of the plan is to frame Sonic. Mimic transforms himself into the blue blur and makes sure he will be seen by a security camera, but he also manages to capture the attention of a robotic T-Rex. Thinking he could take it out easily, Zavik Zavik tries to control it, but comes to the sudden realization that it's shielded. To everyone's surprise, the muscle of the group take action. Ruff and Tumble launch themselves at the dino and bomb it from the inside, taking the mechanical beast down. Starline heads off to delete the footage of the group so that the only thing left would be footage of Sonic. Mimic questions Starline and where he is off to, as both he and Zavik are very wary of the Doctor. All goes through though, and they clean up the site, making it look like Sonic had come to do some hero work. The next day, Eggman arrives to the site of the attack, though he realizes fast that something fishy is going on, as this appears out of character for both Sonic and Tails. Back in Starline's lab, we see those mysterious green tubes again, which he alludes to being his master plan. He then begins to dash around his lab at incredible speed and jump at amazing heights and lift more than the average creature. He unveils that he has created what he calls the Tricore. Catching up with Starline a bit later, we see him looking over his last development journal, learning that now with the Tricore, he can move forward with his main plan, also mentioning that the power of the Tricore will allow him to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles. The journal also reveals that the prior conversation the Doctor had with Zavik stuck with him, and he now wishes to surpass Eggman. However, he still plans on taking his allies out after taking over Egg Base Sigma. While the video is playing out, Starline doesn't appear to notice Zavik approaching him from behind. In a twist, Zavik reveals that this Starline is actually Mimic. Both had suspected that Starline was up to something else, and this only confirmed it for them. Mimic, being angered at this betrayal, takes out a knife and heads for the sleeping Doctor. When Zavik stops him, he tells Mimic that they should wait until Starline gets into the Eggnet and then they can make their move. The next morning, the squad heads out for their mission. While in the truck, Zavik plays to Starline's ego, and we see his arrogance get the better of him as he truly believes that Zavik has fallen for his ruse. Arriving to the Eggnet hub, Starline equips each team member with a power core and explains how to use them to enhance their abilities. Mimic and Zavik exchange a quick glance when Starline lies, saying that he doesn't need a core as he has no abilities to enhance. Proceeding with the plan, Zavik and Mimic aim for the watchtowers, taking the guards out swiftly. Meanwhile, Ruff and Tumble take out the front gate for Starline. Zavik and Mimic are met with little resistance from the egg pawns as they take out the last towers. They regroup at the center of the base, and Mimic unlocks the center building. Ruff and Zavik easily take out the final guards as Starline heads to the Eggnet. As Starline begins to hack his way into the database, Mimic tells Starline to hurry as he doesn't want to alert Eggman. Starline reveals that Eggman was already alerted, but he is redirecting the information feed. The next thing that we see is Orbot delivering the new report to Eggman, telling him that the attack is actually Sonic and it's not coming from the Eggnet hub. Eggman doesn't fall for this simple ploy and decides that he will check out both locations no matter what. Starline, now believing everything is in the clear, lets the others know that the base is now theirs. It's at this moment that Mimic pulls out a knife, holding it up to the Doctor's throat. Starline begs Zavik for help, and of course, Zavik refuses. With a knife to his throat, Mimic makes Starline delete him from Eggman's database, and Zavik commands him to give him an army. Under extreme pressure, Starline searches his pocket for his Tricore, as the group now have achieved what they wanted and turn attention to the Doctor. The foes surround Starline as they tell him the only thing left that they want is his hide. Equipping the Tricore, Starline leaps high into the air and trades blows with Tumble, slightly overpowering him. Zavik wants to end this nonsense and tries to grab the Doctor, who speeds out of the way. Zavik orders Mimic to stay behind while the others go hunt Starline. Mimic comes to the realization that Starline had a point. Everyone else is a liability to him, and with that in mind, he sends an alert to Eggman while he leaves the base. Receiving the new alert, Eggman sees Zavik on his security feed. Him and his forces turn directly to the Eggnet hub. Ruff is the first to find Starline, who uses the power core to knock him down. While he was winded, Starline jabbed him with a toxin from his spurs to immobilize him. Zavik searches through the halls, calling out to Starline, mocking him as he hides above. This again seems to get through to Starline. Looking back on all his plans and how they've failed, he realizes that his shortcomings are just like Eggman's, whom he had critiqued. While dashing through the hallways, Tumble comes across Starline looking for a rematch. However, his speed proves too much as he hits him with his toxin. Starline returns to the Eggnet and looks out for Mimic, who is long gone. Starline hacks in and changes the codes for Egg Base Sigma to serve him. Meanwhile, Zavik finds Ruff and Tumble and scolds them for being inept before heading after the Doctor alone. As Zavik heads in, he finds Mimic missing, but isn't surprised. What truly shocks him is seeing Eggman appear on the screen, who is fully prepared to take this base out in order to stop Zavik. He turns the defenses on Eggman, who starts being blasted out of the sky. As the battle rages, we see Mimic leaving, as well as Ruff and Tumble. Onlooking from a hill in the distance is Starline. Eggman commands his forces to bring the hub down. All that is left is rubble. Then a very injured Zavik appears out of the debris and commands a nearby Eggbot to help him escape. Later at Eggman's HQ, Orbot delivers the news to Eggman that Zavik had escaped, and while this bothers Eggman, the true thing that is eating away at him is that someone else was behind all of this, gunning for him, and he had no idea who it could be. Cutting to Egg Base Sigma, Starline is moving in and making upgrades to his newly commandeered base, and once again, we can see several egg pawns moving those green tubes that Starline has great plans for. Sitting upon his new throne, Starline declares that he will prove himself as Eggman's superior.